Welcome to Lawsuits and Lessons. I'm Steve Cooper, and this is a show where you get to hear some great entrepreneurs and business people giving their insights, their wisdom, their knowledge. We tell some good stories. We have a good time. And I want to bring on my host, the man, the myth, very dapper looking. Always comes on dapper. I got a t-shirt on. Look at him. It's John Fogler. What's up, John?
What's up? I'm looking especially dapper today because I had a client meeting, but yeah, I'm not as dapper as I used to be. It used to be an everyday thing for me, and now it's every once in a while.
Well, I remember when we recorded Living in the Law, sometimes you come into the studio, you always looked sharp because sometimes you'd be going to the office and it was always a good look. I was like, you look good now. But it was like, yeah, I remember one time you had like a vest at a tie and you wore jeans. And I was like, this guy looks like he could be in a 80s rock band. That's what he could be in. Anyway,
That would be awesome.
we have a great show. My guest, he has a lot in common with you. Well, we all have a common that we're bald and have glasses, but he's practices law. He's an entrepreneur. But this is the most amazing thing. You, John, were at game 6 of the Spurs versus the Thunder. And then the Spurs went on to win game 7. Michael was at game 6 of the Sixers Celtics. That's why he didn't think there was going to be a game 6. And he said he could probably do the show. And then the Sixers went on to win in 7. So he's a fellow hoop head like you. And let's bring him on. It's Mr. Michael Adler. How you doing, Michael?
I'm so happy to be here. Nice to see you, John, and Steve, you're good old friends, so happy to be here.
Nice to meet you, Michael.
Nice.
So you're a hoops guy like me, huh?
Yeah, so I grew up in Central Jersey. I was actually a Knicks fan back in the late 80s and early 90s, but I know. Came to law school in Philadelphia and became a diehard Sixers fan, season ticket member.
Okay.
So I've gone to a lot
Okay.
of Sixers games since I moved to Philadelphia.
Let's see what kind of fan you are. So yesterday's game, San Antonio versus Texas in San Antonio. I took a late flight so that I could go to that game, but before about I don't know 8 hours before that game, somebody offered me $6,500 per seat for my tickets. What would you have done, Michael?
I've kind of been there in a lot of things, but that's a good price. I probably would have taken that
I
price.
took it.
Yeah, yeah. I've
I
sold
took
I've
it.
sold I've sold tickets. I'm also an Eagles season ticket member, and the Eagles have had a nice run the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
there's some games I've watched from the comfort of my couch, and I've enjoyed that.
Well,
And
yeah,
kind of
I ended up at
yeah.
54th Street,
Okay.
that restaurant bar.
I got to tell you this real quick. I know it's like I'm a Sixers fan as well as I love the Knicks, but I got to tell you something. One thing about the Knicks, they have a bunch of Villanova grads, okay, from Philadelphia School, and their president, Leon Rose. I'm friends with his brother, Adam Rose, and so it's like it's sort of like a Cherry Hill connection. But we're not going to talk about that. We're not talking about
We can
basketball
talk sports
because
for an hour. I'm good.
the Sixers are just and John, was a Lakers fan. Then he moves to San Antonio, and he gets the Spurs now. So John's spoiled. John's spoiled.
Yeah, a little bit different though, right? Because I wasn't a Spurs fan. I just thought, I'll get to watch all these other teams and I'll get to watch the Lakers, twice or whatever. But I bought those tickets when the Spurs had won like 11 games. I mean, it was they were just so bad, and then even the year after Wemby came, they were still pretty bad. So, this is the first year I'm actually able to make up for how bad they've been the last 3 seasons that I've had these tickets. So, there was a couple seasons I couldn't give them away. I'd be out of town or something. I'm like, "Hey, you want my tickets?" "No, thanks." So that's how bad they were.
Well, okay, now we're gonna switch gears because this is lawsuits and lessons. This isn't sports talk, which I'm fine with that. But it's just it's something I want to find out more about Michael. Which Michael, okay, good. We're gonna talk about your career and your thing. But Michael told me on the phone yesterday, and he just said it so nonchalantly. And this goes to entrepreneurship. He owns a haunted house. Now, I want to know how. Tell me about that and what made you invested, and how did this happen?
Sure. So it's in Philadelphia. We're entering our 5th year. Um, a client of mine that I was helping with a real estate transaction in Manayunk, which is part of Philadelphia. A great flood happened. It was Hurricane, I believe, Ida, and all of Manayunk was flooded, and so the project got put on hold. And as part of the refinancing with the bank and dealing with the insurance company and dealing with the seller of the property, we decided the first floor, which was a bar for 15 years, would be a great location for a haunted house. And um, three partners, me, two other partners, just came up with an amazing idea. It's got great legs, and we're on our fifth year, and we're probably going to acquire a liquor license and a restaurant right next door, so it can be a larger location with a liquor license. It's been a great project. We've done very well with it.
So do people come in and you get scared? Is it one of those like or is it like one of those things where you walk in like John, you remember Universal? Universal they just jump out. It's not even scary, it's just startle. It should be called the Startle Fest, not the Scare Fest. Tell me what happens in this haunted house, because I might want to go if I get comp, I get free tickets.
Yeah, oh, I would love for you to go. So it's called Lincoln Mill Haunt. It tells the story of Victor King and that we uncovered when the floodwaters receded, of how back in the 20s and 30s he used to do all sorts of experiments on his workers at the mill. But there's 40 live scare actors every night. Jump out, they're not allowed to touch you, but they do scare you. It's a whole scene outside. You see people running out screaming because a guy in a chainsaw is chasing after them. Um, and we've had a lot of fun with it. It's the makeup is great, the investment is already there, the props are terrific. There's all sorts of animatronics and laser lights, and you look like you're in a like a pool of toxic water. A lot of special effects, and it's really amazing that what we've put into this and how it's become a premier attraction in Philadelphia. And we're not just open for the 19 days before Halloween. We do a Halloween event, we do a St. Patrick's Day event, we do a Star Wars themed event halfway to Halloween, and just try to, you wouldn't tell your clients to invest in something that's only open 35 days out of 365, but like a popular ice cream shop, it does pretty well when the price is right and the customers want the experience. John and I were talking earlier about experiences. That's what people want today, is experiences. We'll pay extra dollar to go to a sporting event. People want experiences and get off their damn phones.
Yeah, yeah. And what's the liability for something like that? Because I was just thinking that people getting scared, startled, chased. I mean, what's the
We have insurance, of course. We've never had a claim. Somebody may have chipped their tooth allegedly on something, but we took care of it. It's been, we sell liquor on the premises, but the brewery brings their own liability license on it. And we've just had a great time playing with different stories each year and evolving the story. And if we can close on this brewery next door, we'll have a much larger venue to add even more minutes to the experience.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Breweries in Texas have been doing really poorly. So they're having trouble staying open in Texas. I don't know if that's just a Texas thing or if that's well, actually that's in California too. I know a few breweries that have closed here in LA also. So do you know about the brewery business or
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of breweries. One of the place I met my wife was a brewery, and that's closed since. Um, it's what I'm hearing is that younger people are not drinking beer as much as they're drinking those, mixed cocktails in a can or hard liquor. And beer is just something that, Steve and I enjoy a good beer. And, the younger kids are just not drinking as much beer. And I think the statistics in the industry are bearing that out. But there's still plenty of other beverages and other things that people can imbibe or toke that are other recreational things that people are choosing these days rather than maybe beer.
yeah, I think that's probably what it is. I mean, I think it's that people are smoking instead of drinking, at least the younger generation.
So, Michael, we always ask about entrepreneurship, and a lot of times we ask is, do you think it's something you're born with or you develop it? Where does do you think your entrepreneurial flair comes from? And when did you start really getting into being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I guess this goes back a long time ago when I tell this story a lot because I tell my clients this a lot. So my when my father, Ira, was a young boy in the Bronx, his father, Milton, was an accountant, a bean counter, wore the green shade and everything, and worked in a small accounting firm. And one of the clients of the firm that Milton worked on was growing very quickly and said to Milton, "You know what, Milton? I like you. I'd like you to come on to my company, leave this firm, and be my CFO. But here's the thing, I don't have enough business for you to be a full-time CFO. So what I'd like you to do is come on maybe 50% of the time, bring a few clients, but when we get a little bigger, I'm going to ask you to get rid of your clients and just be my CFO." And my dad was 6 years old at the time, and he remembers hearing his mother and his father fighting in the kitchen about how big of a risk this was and how Milton shouldn't leave his good accounting job to go with this one client who may or may not flame out. And you know what happened? My dad used to go into Manhattan with Milton, And Milton would point to a high-rise skyscraper and say, "See that floor up there? That would have been the floor of all my employees at the company that eventually." So that story always stuck with me. It always stuck with my father about sort of taking risks, being in a position to take risks, and being an entrepreneur. Because an entrepreneur is a mindset. Not everybody has it, not everybody can do it. But taking those chances when the opportunities are presented themselves, that maybe a once in a lifetime opportunity is sort of. And then my dad went to law school as a second career. It was too risky for him to go to law school, but he went to law school as a second career. And then when he was 40, he started his own legal practice. And so I did the more traditional way. I went to law school right out of college. And then the day I turned 40, I opened my own law firm, which was quite a few years ago. So, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since. Yeah, that's kind of my story.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I have a similar circumstance where, you know, my wife tried to talk me out of a bunch of these things too. Do you think that there's a difference between men and women and how they think? And, because there clearly are more male entrepreneurs than female entrepreneurs. I mean, I see it in my business.
Yeah, and some of that may be there's so many reasons for that, and I think women entrepreneurs have a leg up. Actually, I think there's so many opportunities for women. I encourage women to become entrepreneurs, um, but I think it takes a certain kind of coaching, advising, and listening to others to become an entrepreneur. So, like, I turn people's side hustles into their main hustles. A typical client, whether I'm coaching them or doing legal work for them, is somebody who's kind of had a paycheck for 25 to 30 years, been very successful, and then they either get voluntarily or involuntarily severed. And so they're looking at what their next future is. And what that next future may be opening a coaching practice, opening a consulting firm, or doing what they were doing, but now being the boss and maybe not getting paid every 2 weeks, but figuring out how to be an entrepreneur and an owner that's different than getting a paycheck every 2 weeks and just making sure you're not pissing off the boss. At the end of the day, you are the boss, and there's a lot more you're responsible for when you become the owner or entrepreneur of a single person startup or ultimately a larger company that you grow and hire people and fire people and make all sorts of decisions you may not have had the responsibility for when you were just a highly paid executive.
So tell us more about your practice. So, um, from what you're saying, you take people and you say, "Hey, let me help you become an entrepreneur." But that I'm assuming is more of your coaching side of your business, right? Well, let's start with, since we're talking about the coaching. Tell us about the coaching, and then we'll get into your law practice.
Yeah, so mostly what I do is help people along from turning their side hustle again into their main hustle. So it could be somebody who has a job but has always had an idea. And so taking them from corporate formation to maybe a partner, operating agreements, all the different corporate formation issues, contracts, hiring, firing, having an independent contractor, protecting your intellectual property, your assets. I also do a lot of similar things in other spaces, but it's the same. A restaurant owner, a real estate owner, I sort of either do some of the legal stuff for them or coach them or some to take their business idea, whether it's investing in real estate, whether it's opening a restaurant, whether it's an artist who has never had a lawyer or advisor before. I do a lot of stuff in the arts and entertainment world, as I believe you do as well. So, either helping them through their craft or their side hustle, like investing in a wine or their brother-in-law's winery or something like that, and then protecting them.
You're saying that, and I always wonder this, can you deal with people and, there's people who are idea people. And how do you handle it? And this may sound funny, but I'm not trying to be funny. How do you handle if a person comes to you, a client comes, and their idea just sucks? Like, how do you sit there and go, "Hey, you know what? I want you to believe in yourself, but that sucks." Like, how do you handle that? Because when you have an idea, you think it's the most brilliant idea. And then you sit there and you mull it and you go, "Oh, that sort of sucks." You go to sleep, "Wow, this really sucks." And, "Oh, this is good." And then, and talk to someone, "What do you think about this?" And they go, "Well, it's not that good." And you get hurt. But then you go to a person like you who has the authority and helps people. And I go, "Hey, Michael, here's the deal. You know how there's newspaper routes? I want to start a toilet paper route. How do you think that would be?" And you go, "Coop, that sucks." I mean, how do you deal with it? And has it happened to you where you just really shattered someone and hurt them?
Yeah, I think it's just being honest with people. I think it's asking them questions and challenging their business plan so they come to the answer themselves that maybe that's not the greatest idea. I ask them what kind of market research they've done because they can't just ask their mom, their dad, and their best friends if that's a good idea. They got to ask disinterested customers, is this something that causes pain? Is this something you would pay for? And maybe how much would you pay for this product or service? I've learned so much in just the last few months. I've become a member of a well-established angel investment group here in the Philadelphia area called Robin Hood Ventures. Shout out to them. And I'm just surrounded by some of the smartest investor entrepreneurs, people who've done exits, and then just learning how they look at a deal, how they analyze a deal from the numbers, how they do due diligence about the deal, but more importantly, what they're looking for in the founder. Because that's what I've always done is I want to know not your business idea, but are you as the founder somebody who's coachable, somebody who has done it before, somebody who is amenable to advisors? Because we know almost every business in America that has become a success was not the original way it was written down on a napkin or in some, Harvard business plan. It's evolved, it's pivoted, and it changes. I mean, almost every good business in America has changed. But the question is, are the founders willing to be teachable? Are they willing to, or do they just have such a cocky arrogance that they think their way is, I was talking to some guy just yesterday who I left the call saying, good luck to you. I can't help you at all. And that's an example because he was just so sure that his business plan was the next great business plan.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've heard ideas that I thought were terrible ideas that worked out, and then I've heard ideas that I thought were great and they just didn't go anywhere. So I don't really leave it up to my judgment. But there's a question that I ask sometimes, when we're talking about new ideas or new businesses, and it seems to be the question that either makes or breaks it. What I found, and that's barrier to entry, right? And it could be either way, right? The barrier of entry could be so low that you have a good idea, you start it, and then a bunch of other people are going to do it with more money, more resources, and you're, it's kind of like coming up with a good delivery idea, and then Uber going, oh, that's great, and then the next day putting a little button, and then you're done, right? The other one is the opposite direction, where the barrier of entry is so high that unless everything aligns perfectly, it's just never going to happen. Well, I would say like, what's Elon Musk's company, the spaceship company,
SpaceX, the one that's
SpaceX,
gonna, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
You can
that's one that
invest, you can
the
invest
bear.
for $35 a share in like a week. Yeah.
Yeah, but what
Mm.
I'm saying is like the barrier of entry for space travel is so high that I guess only a guy like Elon could do it. But yeah, so that question always seems to be the one that it's like, okay, this idea is great, but it just isn't going to happen because of either the barrier of entry is too low or it's too high.
Right. Oh, great points. Great points. I sometimes describe it as what's the moat for somebody else to get into that space once they see you doing it. And the other thing is it's usually not the first though in the space. It's sometimes the second or third in the space that does it better than the first person who may not have been the right founder, may have had the wrong partners, may not have had enough capital, never patented their idea or protected their idea. Or it was just something that wasn't patentable or protectable because it's just a business process. And then, it's that second more nimble or larger company. You're absolutely right, John.
Well, what's interesting is speaking of that larger company or being more nimble or whatever, there's two products that I use that just absolutely stink, and it's two very large companies that own these products. It's Siri and Alexa. I can't believe how bad those two products are. And then I happened to be reading a newsletter, and the newsletter was talking about that. Everyone's complaining, how is Siri and Alexa so bad when there's all this great AI out there and it's so much better. And what they were saying is they're waiting the for it to slow down a little bit so that there's the best version, and then they're either gonna buy it or they're gonna make something better because they have the money for it. So they're letting everyone else do the work, and then they're gonna step in and take all the glory just like Rin Tin Tin.
What's the Rin Tin Tin reference?
I grew up watching these Rin Tin Tin cartoons thinking Rin Tin Tin was the big hero, because he saved, some kids with some medicine or whatever. But the story goes that there was this town in Alaska that had some outbreak of something. I don't know what it was, malaria, something, who knows? Probably not malaria in Alaska, but some outbreak of something. And so they were trying to get this medication from Anchorage to this small little town, and it had 3 legs to the journey. And so each town had a different dog sled crew. And the first crew, very dangerous. A bunch of dogs died. A bunch of people died. Then the second leg, even worse. Almost all the dogs died. Almost all the riders died or whatever. The third leg was the easiest leg, and Rin Tin Tin was the lead dog and got all the credit, even though because he's the one that crossed the finish line basically. So that's why I was making that Rin Tin Tin reference.
And I'm glad I didn't watch that. That shit would have screwed me up. I was like, oh my God, I hate Rin Tin. I want to watch Speed Racer and Sprite on Chim Chim.
Well, the thing about it is that everyone thinks Rin Tin Tin was the hero, but if you dig into the story, he had the easiest job. So anyway, that's the Rin Tin Tin reference.
Well, now I know that, so I'll be telling that to the kids in school. Hey, man, Rin Tin Tin's a poser. And so, as we talk about entrepreneurs, and Michael, you work with them, and when did you know you wanted to work with entrepreneurs? Because you have an entrepreneurial spirit. I know that. The art stuff you work with and stuff like that. But when did you decide that you wanted to work with entrepreneurs? Because it's one of those things. It's probably challenging sometimes because, well, earlier said ideas suck, but it seems now everybody thinks they're an entrepreneur. Everybody. I mean, it's like as I always say, the newspaper kid. Oh, lemonade stand. Oh, I'm a solopreneur. It's like, no, you own a lemonade stand. But so, what made you decide that you wanted to work with them? Because you have to meet a lot of characters. Because once again, we've talked about this many times. You you're flying from the seat of your pants, as it's like as Michael Barretto said, you're jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. So, when did you decide you wanted to start working with them?
Let's see. When I was a younger lawyer, I worked in big firms and all of our cases had lots of zeros at the end of them, but nobody was really passionate about what they did. The clients weren't that passionate about it. The other lawyers that surrounded me. And I worked at great law firms and I have nothing but great things to say about the lawyers there, but I just felt like the clients were like, this is a big fight. We got to win it. We got to spend a lot of money. Just don't embarrass us. Good luck. Keep us posted. I didn't love that. I loved the smaller clients that I was assigned to, that I got to work with, and that I worked with in the community. In my Jewish community, I worked with a group called the Tribe 12 Fellowship, where every year 10 people applied to become part of an incubator space where they were paired up with mentors and coaches. I've been doing that for 12 to 15 years. I loved that. One of my clients was on Shark Tank with a very successful product still out. So that's the kind of exciting things, taking something from a pre-revenue idea and seeing it turn into 20x, 40x, or multiples of revenue. That's the kind of stuff. The $1 billion deals, that's for somebody else. That's not who I am. That's not what I like to work on.
Going off of what Michael said. So, Michael, I'm a little bit the other direction. I don't mind the smaller guys, but I like the bigger guys because I want to have the resources to win. And, unfortunately, with what I do, which is, litigation, usually it's the bigger pockets that win it, right? Because at the end of the day, whoever can take more of the risk is the one that can go the farthest. And so, I have plenty of clients all over the place, some smaller ones, but it's a lot harder to have that conversation with a smaller one. Like, I know it's unfair. I know that you didn't do anything wrong, but you have to settle because it's going to cost you 200K, just to,
Yeah, we're talking about litigation. I started in litigation. I did lots of years of litigation, but it's the smaller guy who's got an idea that I think I connect to capital raising. That gets me excited. I mean, also same thing in real estate. Like one of my favorite clients that I love talking about because of what he is today and where he is. He was a waiter at Applebee's. He just always wanted to be into real estate. So he saved up his tips, had a few $1,000s, bought a house from a guy he met in a barber shop, and it turns out that guy didn't actually own the building. He gave him a fraudulent deed. So he gave him all his money and didn't have the properties it was an abandoned property. So there was no real person that owned the house. And that's common in Philadelphia. There's a lot of abandoned properties. And the guy that sat next to him in the chair in Philadelphia, you know, got $8,000 of tips for a house he never owned. So he came to me crying, and I was able to bring a quiet title action, a sort of a, he was the most likely who had, there was no one else who could have owned the property. He was a legitimate third party, arm's length transaction. And after a hearing, the judge gave him the deed because there was no one else who could have the deed because we couldn't find the prior right owners who had just abandoned the property. So now my guy had two houses, and now he has many more than two houses because I was able to fix that issue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and he might have just stopped trying after that if you hadn't helped him out. Because you hear that story a lot too, right? With entrepreneurs, it didn't go well, I'm done, right? So,
Yeah, you
yeah.
learn from failures. You learn you how to overcome failures. Is I always ask that of a potential founder of a company, like, what didn't go right so far? I want to hear that answer. What have you learned from your failures?
Ooh, that's actually a really good question that I've never thought to ask.
Oh, all the time. It's one of the first things. I don't ask it up front. I want to hear more about what they think is great, but then I want to hear how they've overcome some of their failures. And those are some of my best clients or coaching people I advise or people we've invested in.
Well, that's not, what do you mean by invested in? So uh, you're actually investing in the businesses with the clients or some other arrangement?
I've done that many times. Sometimes I've just gotten equity in exchange for, starting it up. I've done that with media companies and real estate plays, land deals. I also, lend my own money. I mean, I've done enough deals for clients that I'll give a second mortgage on something to renovate with a 12-month term on a, decent rate so that we refinance and I do well and the client does well. But again, it's not somebody who's just calling me up randomly. These are
Yeah.
vetted personal relationships. That's who I always recommend my clients do business with. That's who I always do business with. The people I know and trust and want to see it to the finish line.
That's great. And do you have any of them that have gone badly?
Oh, sure, sure. But have my deals gone to litigation? No. There's always a way to work out a deal. But things, a recent one was I lent money to a good friend and his business partner to renovate a very good deal they got on a property, and they planned to do it in 12 months. But one of them lost their jobs, so he didn't have the capital, the construction capital. So we had to take a little more time than 12 months to find a replacement partner who could come in with the capital so the two of them could do it. And I was very patient instead of foreclosing on it. I wouldn't do that to my friend. They were good to me. I was good to them. We worked it out. That was a deal that ended up working out for everybody.
Now, for this question for both of you guys, because both of you invest and do all like that, you both have gotten burnt probably on deals, and it happens. But so, how do you rebound from that? It's like with comedy when you have a crappy set. You have to if mentally you're drained. You're like, oh God, I just ate it. I'm not funny. And you have to bounce back, but you have to get back on stage. For you, both of you, I'm gonna hear both of your things where you've got burnt on a deal. How did you trust the next person who came along? Because I think you would be a little gun shy. John, you can answer, and then Michael can.
I think it's that I have a really short memory. I with all the bad things that I've seen happen to other people, I don't get burned very often. But the times that I have gotten burned, um, I just kind of shake it off and keep moving. And then there's even times where someone approaches me, someone from my past, and then we start talking, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is the guy that didn't pay me back the money he owes me. You know what I mean? And so I have a really short memory for stuff like that. And I think, I mean, in on one hand, it could be a problem, but on the other hand, it keeps me from the fear. Like I don't have fear of putting something out there, whether it be time, whether it be money, whether it be, some emotional effort. I don't have any fear of it. And I think it's because I have a short memory.
I think that's a great answer, John. I like to diversify my investments. So I've got some in the haunted house. I've got some lending, some, I have an income. I have coaching clients. Just a whole bunch of things. So if one thing is a little slower than another, I'm not worried about how I'm going to pay my mortgage and how I'm going to eat that month and putting some savings away. So I think it's important to not, and this is the same advice I give to people who, start their company, maybe it's consulting practice. Like, all right, you don't have any clients. Now you have one client, maybe you have two. So now you're at 100% capacity. You got to keep networking because one of those are going to go away and now you're back to 50% capacity. So you got to keep, keeping your pipeline fresh, maintaining relationships, and always thinking about where the next gig is, the next deal. How am I going to replace that income and diversify your income? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. All the old good ways to accumulate wealth is to minimize your risk and diversify your portfolio.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I should probably do a little bit more in that. I'm pretty heavy in my business, of course, and then heavy in real estate, and then a few other little things, but nothing to, to write home about.
All right, we'll talk offline. I've got 10 deals for you.
Okay. Are they in Philadelphia?
Yeah, no, whatever.
Well, John, you bought a house in Gloucester, didn't you? Because you called me one time, and in Gloucester, New Jersey, and it was like, wasn't it like you bought it for like? They told me the price, and I was like, he's got to be full of crap. What was it? What did you buy that for? And they go,
I don't
it's
even remember
Gloucester.
what it.
It's
Yeah.
trying Gloucester. They're trying to build it up. Like Berlin got built up. So I remember you calling it. It was like, yeah, you're a Gloucester. See, Michael, John always gives me a hard time because when I met him, I told him I'm from Philadelphia, and then he found out I'm from New Jersey. I had to explain to him though that people, especially in LA, don't know that. They go, "Oh, you're from New Jersey. Why aren't you a Giants fan?" And I go, "Well, because I grew up 12 miles from Philadelphia. My parents are." So he's always giving me crap. And he's had people call me. He's at a bar. I had these girls call one time. They go, "You're not from Philadelphia." They were from Philadelphia. They're from King of Prussia, Mike. They're saying someone from King of Prussia is closer to Philly than Cherry Hill, which is bullshit.
Matt, is Villanova University a Philadelphia college? Are these Knicks from Philly or are they, Villanova's won a few titles. Sometimes people say it's a Philly school. Sometimes people say it's 20 miles on the main line.
Let's talk about AI. John, you start. John's fascinated with AI. Fascinating. And you seem like the type, I bet you're really learning a lot about it. I mean, John can talk hours. So, John, talk to him about AI because you guys, I don't like AI. I did use the ChatGTP for the first time to make a fake flyer because I want to start this. I want to teach kids, elementary school kids and middle school kids, a boot camp on how to speak in public, and it's called Speak Up with Mr. Cooper. And I just did a chat GPT and it came out pretty good. But the guy who came on was like this real handsome guy. I don't know how to put a picture in it. I'm not paying for the higher level one. But you guys give me a little, John, you tell him your thoughts and idea. And AI. And Michael, you give it back for it because you guys both probably use it in both your business because you're both law and uh, real estate, entrepreneurial stuff. So John, tell him what your thoughts are and ask him about AI.
Well, I mean, I'll give you my background in AI. It's not much of a background. I think I was a pretty early adopter because I just saw, I spend so much money on overhead, especially with my firm is attorney heavy, right? So, and then I always needed to hire more attorneys, more paralegals. So I wanted to find a tool where one attorney could do the job of three or whatever the number worked out. So I was a early adopter. I thought I knew a lot, but things changed so fast. I talked to some young kids. They were in their early 20s, out of San Antonio, which is not, you wouldn't think is a tech hub. And by the time I was done speaking with them, I felt like a chimpanzee trying to learn English. Like I literally was like, "Oh my God, I don't know anything compared to these young kids that are not even, college educated." So my thoughts on it are, it's still just moving so fast. It hasn't met its watermark yet. So it's really hard to gauge anything right now because I got so heavy into it. I think I spent 2025 probably 250K in bots and agents and all of these things trying to figure out how to make things better. And at the end of the day, nobody wants to use them, and it's really tough to really get them to use it and to do it. So I'm not sure where we are in that arc, and I'm trying to look at it as if this was 1996 and everyone was just trying to jump on the internet. So I'm not quite sure where we are, but it doesn't seem like things are slowing down. And every time you buy something, something else better comes out. I was just about to cancel my chat GPT because I love perplexity so much, but now they came out with Codex and I'm like, wow, this is even better. So it's like Every time one achieves something, another one jumps in front of it. Maybe I'll just sit back and just watch all the action for now, because I really thought with the heavy investment of time and money that I put into it, I was going to be so far ahead of everybody, but I'm not. Everyone's still kind of just in the same place, but I'm the dummy that spent all the money. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
I think what companies are finding and enterprises are finding is that a big investment in AI without preparing for the underlying data that you have is exposing the processes that are mistaken. People want authenticity, people want speed, but also people want accuracy. I can't tell you how often I get an email that says, "Dear Peter," and I'm Michael, in an email, because their agents have just gotten the data wrong or something, and nobody's there to clean it. You and I have both seen in the legal world how people are filing briefs to courts or even judges or writing opinions and not even reading them. And it's the AI hallucination with wrong names, wrong fact patterns, wrong case citations. And people are getting into all sorts of hot water for just sloppy stuff. AI can speed things up, and I don't think we should fear it. I think we should keep experimenting with it. And as Claude gets a little better on some things than ChatGPT and Gemini, it's a race to what's better. I think you should be facile in all of them. They're all doing great things. They're all doing different things. Some of them learn better than others, your style or your how you want to respond. Some of the paid versions are better than others. And of course, you and I have to always be concerned about confidentiality of data. Once you put something into the large language model, is it really being shared on the internet in things that are confidential that shouldn't be, whether it's social security numbers, financial information, trade secrets, and things like that? Just have to be careful about what you're uploading, because if you're not paying for it, you are the product, and your client's stuff may be the product too. So you have to be very cautious about how you're using some of these tools.
And what's even scarier for a guy like you and I, Michael, is that because if it's our firm, we are responsible, for whatever happens. And so just to I'm not looking over everyone's shoulder. I don't know who's using what. I've set guidelines for these are the ones you're allowed to use, and this is how you use it only, and you have to check it, right? So I haven't run into a problem yet, but I can imagine a time when people are going to start getting into trouble, especially older lawyers like myself, who came up reading books and may not know all of the tools that these young lawyers are using, and suddenly, they're in trouble for something, which means I'm in trouble for something because, I'm the one responsible for supervision.
Yeah, I think workload will shift too. I think partnerships between lawyers and their corporate clients will shift, because there's things corporate clients can do that they don't have to pay $1,000 an hour to a lawyer and associates to review large data sets. They'll be like, "Here's the data set. We need your judgment or your wisdom or your experience to guide us through it, but we don't need you to analyze it. We can do that, and we can do that much cheaper than we used to pay you."
That's fair enough, because with what I do, we have a lot of data that we have to sift through. And now it's been easier to organize for sure, but clients don't know what to do with that data, especially in the context of litigation. And honestly, a lot of young lawyers don't know what to do with that data in the context of litigation. So somebody that has the experience has to look at what's been organized and go, okay, that's irrelevant. Let's not even waste our time with this. Or, hey, this is a problem. This is great for us, because a lot of times they don't know. They just see data and go, oh, okay, and they're more apt to run after the red herrings. So I don't know. I don't think it'll replace anything, but I think it certainly will make the good attorneys the ones that can think and still know how to reason and still know how to write, because that's still very important. I think it's going to be a very, very, very good tool for them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely another tool. If I was an accounting firm and I used to use abacuses, and someone showed up with a calculator, I'd be scared at first. But I'd say, "Show me how this calculator works." And we'd throw
Uh,
away the abacuses and we'd use the new tool, because the new tool is going to make us better at our jobs. And I think AI is going to do that too.
And then you get the TI 60 whatever, and you turn it upside down and it says Shell Oil, and you're all happy. You figured out that math thing. What's this plus this? Jim Michael, with entrepreneurs, you're an entrepreneur and you work with entrepreneurs. What is some of the main characteristics you see in entrepreneurs like yourself and people you deal with? What do you think are some characteristics that an entrepreneur has or should have?
That's great. Well, first of all, they should have money in the bank because if they're going to start a venture, they're either going to quit their full-time job or they're going to get fired. And they're probably not going to see a single penny in their new venture for 6 to 18 months. So it does help to have a little bit of money in the bank. Probably not at the rate you were spending when you were going to an office every day and had to buy a suit and clothes and stuff, but you should know what your bottom line nut is for for a period of time. So you're not worried about having to drive an Uber or DoorDash or something to make ends meet. Being an entrepreneur is almost a fully consuming thing, from meetings to pitches to refining your product to doing the marketing to creating a website and then just making the product better and then finding customers, dealing with processes, hiring people. It's a full-time job. You're probably going to work harder than you've ever worked. I know you will for the first ever. And then you have to get to the point where you could bring on other teams to help you and then eventually be able to walk away from the business for a week or two. And that's when you know you really have a business rather than being a solopreneur, is when you can walk away and your business is still running without you. And that takes time.
That was well put, Michael, because uh, obviously a business can fail, but if a business is going to do well, everything is really front end loaded. All the risk is front end loaded, all the heartache, the hours, all of that stuff is front end loaded. And if you can get through all of that and have a business that survives, that's what makes it worth it. I mean, it just is, your life is completely different. And there's something about ownership. You have to have ownership. You have to have assets. It just, for tax purposes, for banking purposes, for as many purposes as you can think of, owning your own business is the way to go, in my opinion.
And there's so many things to think about before you really get started. Most people that start a business actually are not solopreneurs. It's friends from college or friends who work together who've got a business idea. And boy, having that operating agreement thought about at the beginning, I think everybody who goes into business believes that if it's three people, it's a one-third owner, or if it's four people, it's one-fourth owner. Well, two people may not think it's one-fourth, 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 one-fourth if they're putting in all the money and fronting all the risk while somebody's just programming and somebody's doing some marketing. And then all of a sudden, you get another investor in and they're like, let me see your operating agreement. There's no operating agreement because you all thought you were one-fourth. And then the guy who's the CTO is like, I thought I was a one-fourth, and he just takes the password, changes it, and locks you out until he becomes the one-fourth. And that's a recent fact pattern is what I'm sharing. So, making sure that you have all the corporate formalities in place, all the operating agreements, and that these things are not left to decide later because they're really important. Hi, little John. How
Yeah.
you doing?
No, this is actually my grandson. So
Hi,
I'm an
grandson.
entrepreneur. My son's an entrepreneur. So this is a
I
future
love it.
entrepreneur.
I
All
love
right.
it. When you're ready
What
to
business
open
are
your
you gonna
first
own?
lemonade stand, John and I will be happy to guide you and decide whether or not to bring partners, or if you get a loan of $5 to buy sugar or lemons, make sure it's a good deal. Make sure you can pay it back.
He's regretting interrupting now. What business are you gonna start when you grow up?
The person at the mountain.
Oh, you're gonna have a mountain business?
Yeah.
So, because we were talking about, the business, and we always talk about the work you put in. And I notice a lot of times people, when they get a business, they automatically, I mean, I don't know if this is, I notice people automatically, they start thinking about, like, okay, I got to spend all this money for a website. But when they don't even really have a product, they don't have anything. It's like my thought is how I see people spend all these money for these business headshots. And it's like, no one's looking. It's not like Hollywood where you go in and your casting agent sends it. You don't walk into a meeting and go, oh, by the way, here's my headshot of me standing in with books like this. I think sometimes people just do bad investments because they want to think that if they have a website, they have a business. Do you guys agree with that? Or I mean, what do you think?
Well, it's like what Michael was saying, where you have to have some form of preparation. So those that just put up a website, they're probably not going to do well because a website doesn't do anything. It's just a static piece of information that sits and gives people it doesn't sell anything, or so
Yeah. So I actually think a website's important, but I don't follow that advice myself. So I probably when I started my law firm in 2013, I don't even think I had a website for like 3 to 4 years. And then some client who runs websites who owed me money was like, let me just put one up for you. It was a very good one. But then I got, inquiries for legal work or stuff that was just not quite a warm referral. And I always wanted to create the concierge practice. In other words, Steve Cooper had to refer a client for me to even be interested. I wanted to create a red velvet rope around sort of who I was and my brand. So if someone was looking for a lawyer, they weren't just shopping on the yellow pages, Googling and finding my website. It was Steve Cooper said you were the guy for me. And I said, great, let's meet. And they said, great, let's meet. And that's it. And that's worked fairly well because I network a lot and I have a good network and I give a lot of referrals. So that's kind of the concierge practice where you have to know me before you're even searching for me because somebody has recommended you.
Oh, that's interesting. I have a little bit of that, but I probably 80% of my business comes from searching. Like you have to search for me.
When I left big firm life, I knew I didn't want to be a big firm lawyer. I sort of wanted to be able to help the people that I wanted to help, friends of friends, and then do my own entrepreneurial ventures. So I never wanted to be the richest lawyer in town. I wanted to be the happiest lawyer in town. So I went about doing that and trying to find a way to do that.
Now, do you think you'll ever walk away from entrepreneurship? Like, I mean, I always seems like a lot of entrepreneurs and entertainers, they're semi the same. They never leave. They think they leave and then they get bored and they go, it's like Al Pacino, they're pulling me back in. Do you think you'll just retire and stop dealing with entrepreneurs?
I hope not. I actually hope not. I hope that I wind down. I hope I still do the things that I want to do with the people that I want to do. I also tend to not do any entrepreneurial investments by myself. It's either guiding somebody else who's going to be the acting partner in like the haunted house or real estate stuff. I'm not hammering nails and fixing electricity, plumbing, but I'm guiding the project. So I feel like I can continue to pick and choose those projects until I can no longer stand up or have mental faculties to do so. And I enjoy doing it. So I can't see at this point, I'm only in my early 50s. I can't see at this point stopping, but I travel. I spend a great deal of time away from my house. I have a very remote practice. My wife and I travel a lot, and I expect to continue to do that as long as I'm healthy to do it.
I was at a dinner party at his house and he had this good, this was a Japanese whiskey. Was it Japanese bourbon?
Yeah, yeah. I opened up a bottle for you. Yeah, I think it was a Suntory. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. See that? It's good stuff. And I went to his 50th birthday party, and the other day, Joanne's walking around the house with the shirt with Michael's face on it, and I was like, "Do not get in bed with that on. Do not get in bed with that on."
So,
So
John, one of the things you don't know about me, I love swag. I love going to people's events, client events, and collecting swag. So, at my 50th, I gave out a lot of swag of footballs and cups and hats and all sorts of shirts. So, I'm happy to hear Joanne is still using it.
so we before we wrap up, well, we always like to give advice. John, do you have any questions from Michael?
No, we're going to talk offline after this because I'm interested in the investments he's talking about.
You already said about, make sure you have money in the bank and like that. But what's your vote of confidence? The advice you would give to someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, they failed a few times, they want your opinion. What would you tell them?
Yeah. So, what did you learn from your failures? Why is this different? Tell me about your business plan. Tell me about how you're going to get to market. You failed twice before. Do you think it was you? Do you think it was circumstances out of your control? There's just so many things that I don't give people a bad mark because they failed before. I think that's one of the best things to learn from. And if you can't learn from your failures, that's a problem. But I think there's a lot to learn from every single thing you've done in your life. I mean, even when I started my law firm, I had a business plan that I threw out 3 months later. Thought I was going to just be a chief fractional legal officer to 5 or 10 clients. That was before anybody was doing that. And it ended up being hard. I had a few clients that I thought were going to come with me. They didn't. They weren't ready for that model yet. So I had to go back to sort of continuing to hunt and get business and develop clients and get referrals from those clients the old fashioned way. So I failed too. I failed many times. I ran for school board and failed. I then started a cyber charter school. I have had lots of failures in my life. I've learned from all of them, and I'm proud of all of them.
Well, you know what? How can people get in touch with you, Michael? How can they find out all what's going on with you? I know you're on. I see on Facebook. Does travel a lot, and he goes to a lot of sporting events. That's why he didn't. It's funny when I texted him to be on last time. He's like he didn't think the Sixers would be making it because they were down 3-1. He's like, I don't think this is going to be another game. But then he's like, oh my God, they won.
The best way to find me is Michael Adler on LinkedIn. Actually, feel free to connect with me. Send me a message. Adler Consulting Strategies. That's really what I'm doing these days. That's what gives me the greatest pleasure is working with somebody who wants to take their side hustle and make it their main hustle and grow their business.
So reach out to Michael. And if you see him at an event, go up and say hi to him. He's always very friendly. I met him through my online coffee with Cooper, and he actually came to cocktails with Cooper once. And people, you can reach out to me, Cooper, coopertalk.net. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. There's 1,060 episodes up there. I got to book some guests. I've been a little lazy for that. But you have to also go onto YouTube and watch Lawsuits and Lessons. And follow us on all the social media platforms. Like me and John have some great guests. We've been going back and forth to different people we know. And that's all I got. And John, how can people get in touch with you? And you always got to wrap it up with your closing words.
All right. Well, defendmybiz.com. Very easy. Michael, thank you. Very interesting. I don't meet very many entrepreneur lawyers that still practice law. So I've met lots of lawyers that are entrepreneurs, but they stopped practicing law. So happy to meet you. Someone that's similar to me, Cooper. Thank you for always keeping the show going. And to everybody out there, be productive.
And thank you, Kat, for producing. We never say thank you to
Oh,
Kat.
that's right. We never
So
say thank you to
Kat, for
Kat.
producing the show.
Yeah.
And Jordan over at Mission Matters. And that's about it. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.